Hi, I'm Miss Mercer, and I am teaching your Sunday Level 5 lesson for today. Your goal for the following slides is to have your child read each sound aloud and to do it as rapidly as possible. If they make an error, then say, this is the letter A, which says ah. Then you're going to show the keyword slide that would show the apple. You would have them trace, as you've seen in prior videos. A says ah. A says ah. And have them do that 3 times using those 2 fingers. That helps get the information into their brains. Okay? So make sure that you are clipping your sounds so you're not saying sa, ba, ka. So make sure your student is clipping them and just saying the sounds without the schwa added. You may pause the video at any point to give your learner more time. They don't necessarily need to say the keyword, but if you think it's helpful, go ahead and have them do that. Okay, so now we're going to the spell sound section. If they were in class, they would have their student notebook, and this is where they would write these sounds. I'm going to say this, dictate the sound to the student. They're going to repeat the sound, and then they're going to say and write it at the same time. Feel free to pause if you need more time for each sound. S, ah, I, j, l, ah, n. Okay, make sure they have enough time to write that and look at their paper if they have an error. For example, this is exactly what I said the day before. I'm sorry if it's repetitive, but certain people are starting on different lessons, and I just want to make sure everybody has the same information. So if they wrote something, they wrote an F and you wanted a D, you would say, I see. I wanted D. So you would try to prompt them. What letter makes the D sound? Try to get that out of your learner. If they produce it, then you'll say yes. D makes the D sound. If you don't have D, cross it out and write D. That's if they don't, So if they don't produce, if they don't give it to you, then you can go ahead and say this and then have them write that and then have them write it 2 more times to make it permanent. Try to make sure that they're forming their letters from the top down as well. That will help them later when they start writing more words to do it more quickly. So that's how you would correct for that. Okay, a question you could ask the learner right now would be, what are 2 ways to write the k sound? And then the answer to that would be C and a K. Okay, now we're going to read some words from one column on the next page. As I've said in previous lessons, if you feel like your student needs more practice with the new skill, you can repeat the lessons and just vary which columns you read. Make sure they put their fingers underneath the word. If they make an error, let's trace. The student needs to look at the word while they trace and say each sound. So if they made a mistake with cat, they would go k, ah, t, cat, but they would be looking at the word as they did that. And then they would do it 2 more times for a total of 3 for automaticity. Make sure they blend underneath while dragging their finger. Okay, so you can pick one of these columns, and if you want to do this column today or this column, you can choose which ones you want to do. If you want to repeat the video lesson and vary it, you can do a different column the next day. Repetition is very essential, and there is nothing wrong with repeating a lesson several times to make sure that the student actually has the skills solid. Okay, so pause the video and have them read these sections or columns. Okay, so now we're going to go to the spell words section of the lesson. I'm going to dictate them. The student is going to touch spell the word and say each sound out loud while writing the word. Okay, so I will dictate each word aloud, reading down the columns, and then your learner will read the words that they have just written. This is just a reminder right here of touch spelling. If your child is a right-handed student, they will have their pencil in their right hand and they will touch spell with their left, touching the table. I can't do it. At. If they're a lefty, they would write with this hand and they would do it this way. At. So that they're following the left to right sequence of our language. And they can do it while they're writing. Okay, so in this section, they would write right here under spell words if we were in school in their student notebook. Okay, so you can write on whatever you would like. I'm going to read or dictate some words. Your child is going to repeat the word, touch spell the word, and then say each sound aloud while writing the word. Okay, first word, cot. They will repeat cot. They will touch spell cot. They will touch spell and write cot at the same time. That is the routine for each of the following words. Okay, the next word, and obviously if you need more time, pause the video for your child. Man. Hop. Pin. Lot. Pat. Dot. Big. Pause the video to make sure your learner has enough time to write all of the words. In the following section, we're going to check our words. If you made an error, cross it out. Don't erase, but write it 3 times correctly. Okay, so please pay attention to the following slides. Cot. If you did not have this written correctly, cross it out. Write it 3 times correctly while saying the sounds. K, a, t, cot. K, a, t, cot. K, a, t, cot. 3 times. Do the same pattern for anything you miss on the following slides. Man. Hop. pin, lot, pat, dot, big. Take the time to pause the video for any corrections that are needed. Now we're going to do spell words. Can be phrases or sentences. I'm going to dictate the phrases for the next slide. Your learner is going to repeat the sentence or phrase, tapping one word per finger. So example, instead of spelling, touch spelling, they will do like one word per finger. The cat was at home. Okay. If it goes beyond the 5, then they start back on that pinky again. The cat was at home. Okay, so they will do that, and then they will repeat the sentence, tapping one word per finger. Then they're going to write the phrase or sentence. The next ones are just phrases, but in the future, if it is a sentence, they will check for capitalization and punctuation. Also, when they're finished, have the learner read the words they've just written back to you as a phrase. Okay, so in this section, this portion, they would write these phrases in this section of the paper. So we're just having a couple of phrases today, and the first phrase is big job. So they will say big job, big job. Okay. Then they will write it. Then have them read it back to you. The next phrase is hot dog. They will tap out the words hot dog. They will write the words hot dog. And then they will read the phrase back to you. So check your sentences. If you made an error, we'll show you the corrections on the next page. If you made an error, don't erase, cross it out, and then write it correctly. So you should have written big job and hot dog. If you wrote it incorrectly, cross it out and write it again correctly. Okay, now we're going to do something a little bit different today. We're introducing a new sight word instead of a letter and a sound. So on the slide, you'll see a sight word card. You're going to say it aloud, and then I'm going to say it aloud. I'm going to ask you to repeat it. Now, the difference between this is that the learner is going to trace the letter while saying the letter name, not the sound, because these are sight words and they don't follow the rules of sounds. So then the learner will repeat the word before and after tracing. They will also write the new sight word on paper. Okay? So for this one, A, this is a short one. So they would write this, they will trace the letter, but they won't say A says A. They're going to say A says A. A says A. Okay, because it is a sight word and it doesn't say A in this section. Okay. Then while saying that, they're going to write that right here in this new material section. If you have a red pen, it would be fabulous to do it with a red pen. They can trace the card. You can go back and have them put their finger on the red card. I'm putting my finger on the computer right now. A says A. They can do it that way as well. Have them write not A says A. I'm sorry, that's wrong. A says A. And then have them write that 3 times as a sight word. If you have a red pen, that would be perfect so that they know it's different than the letter by itself and its sound. Okay. Now we're going to do the next one. This is the. Okay. So they're going to trace. Ideally, they would have a red card that they could put their hand over while they look at it and trace. They could also take their finger and trace it on the iPad, whatever works for you. But the more rough the surface, kind of the better. But remember, you're going to say the letter names, not the sounds. T-H-E says the. T-H-E E says the. T-H-E says the. Do that 3 times. Then have them write it while saying it under the new material section. T-H-E says the. T-H-E says the. T-H-E says the. Okay, so now they have 2 more sight words. Give them time to do that. Make sure they're doing it correctly. They can do it with pen or pencil, but a red pen would make that even better because it kind of shows that these words are different. They don't follow the sound rules like the other words. And then the final section is the read aloud. Have your child use their finger and go to each word while they read aloud. You can pause the video to give them more time. Oh, sorry. So pause the video on this section, and that will give them more time to complete it.